We're going to go back to the newsroom. And people that are concerned about family members, I think we have some information on how we can reach some of them. Jen, what's the latest?
Yeah, certainly in Chile, you know, after Haiti, it was very difficult to find information on family members and loved ones who were traveling to Haiti or living in Haiti here. I want to talk about Chile and people there today. There is a phone number that you can call to get the very latest information on your loved ones, 1-888-407-4747. I'll repeat that number. It's 1-888-407-4747. And I do want to report a story for you from Chile. This is from the University of Tennessee in Knoxville. There was a full-time MBA program trip scheduled for Chile. There were 67 students and I believe a total of 7 faculty members to have gone to Chile. 3 were there at the time of the quake. They have been accounted for. They felt the shaking. They were in Santiago. They felt it. They are fine. The students and the other remaining 4 faculty members never arrived there. Their planes were diverted. They're all coming back to Knoxville, and so that's certainly a good story. And I know a sense of relief for the friends and for the family of those students and those faculty members from the University of Tennessee in Knoxville. Again, if you are trying to find information about your friends or your family, and we have nearly 70,000 Chilean Americans here in the U.S., if you're trying to find information, you can call 1-888-407-4747. I'll continue to look for any additional information as well for you this evening. Kim and Adam.
I appreciate it, Jen. Of course, things are going to be changing quite a bit as we go through the rest of the afternoon. Apparently, just to recap, folks that may be joining us right now from the Tsunami Warning Center, it appears as though we have dodged a bullet here, which is a little amazing here. We're actually very happy about that. Happy about this. Why are we a little surprised? Well, an 8.8 magnitude earthquake, which happened very early, about 1:34 Eastern Time, off the Chilean coast. An 8.8 magnitude earthquake is a big deal. That is the 5th strongest since we have been recording the intensity of earthquakes. And even one of the aftershocks here was a 6.9 magnitude earthquake, which is almost the strength of what that Port-au-Prince earthquake was in Haiti weeks ago. So it just goes to show that magnitude all by itself isn't the only player. Again, we're just going to go over some of the graphics here just to fill people in and look at how far away Chile is from North America, from Hawaii. It's just unbelievable. The epicenter just to the northwest of Chilean in Chile, 8.8 magnitude earthquake, a huge deal, by the way. In fact, Lake Pontchartrain in the United States had a little sloshing. What is that? It's just the water kind of moving back and forth there a little bit, just due to the ground moving. And that happened 11 minutes after this earthquake. Again, just showing you how quickly some of those waves will push on through. They move much faster, some of those waves, through the earth, even than a tsunami. Imagine traveling 4,500 plus miles in 11 minutes. That's how quickly we felt some of those impacts, even in Lake Pontchartrain. So a huge deal here. Looks as though things aren't as bad as we were fretting about. We were thinking things were going to be pretty bad here, but we love it. We love reporting good news. The only thing I fear, Kim, is that you get a little lazy sometimes.
You do.
It happens when we talk about earthquakes all the time. It's like the boy that cried wolf.
Right.
This is a major deal, a top 5 earthquake. Things could have been horrific.
Yes.
This was stronger than the earthquake that caused all the problems in Indonesia in 2004.
Right. You know, again, it has to do with location and the ocean floor. And again, good news for the folks in Hawaii at this time. If you're just joining us, it seems like maybe the worst is over with as far as any type of tsunami for the area, but the warning is still there, folks, so we want folks to stay where you are until the all clear is given.
And just talking about some of the water level rises here, you may not think, oh, that's not very impressive, anywhere from a few feet. Some unofficial reports, Juan Fernandez Island, which is about 400 miles off the coast of Chile. Apparently, we may have been looking at water level rises of about 100 feet. It's so hard to verify some of that information. That clearly would be a big deal. Some people lost their lives there. Right. Again, a lot of this is still a little shaky, a little on the unofficial side. So, of course, as we get more in the way of official reports, we'll let you know. But it just takes so long a lot of times to get some of this information in.
Yeah, and just it's like the death toll, you know, in Chile. You know, I'm sure we're going to be getting reports of a higher death toll. And again, good news for the folks in Hawaii, at least right now, looking at the tsunami threat diminishing here in the next couple of hours. And here are some of the stats as far as the strongest earthquakes since 1900. Chile, a 9.5. That was the big one here in 1960. Again, that generated that tsunami that hit Hawaii, or hit Hilo, and 60 people perished in that tsunami. Alaska, that was a 9.2. Sumatra, a 9.1. And then Chile actually boasting 2 in the top 5 here with that 8.8 we just had.
And that's what worried us about the one we just had this morning. Not only is it a top 5 magnitude earthquake, very similar location with that one versus the one in 1960, which was clearly a lot stronger. And just to show you, it's what we call an exponential scale. So the difference between an 8.8 and a 9.5 is a lot different, which is a little less than a point. So that's 0.7 would be a lot different than an 8.1. That difference between an 8.1 and an 8.8. So as you go up, things get worse exponentially. So a 9.6 versus a 9.5 is so much worse than a 9.4 versus a 9.5. So that's a big deal. A 9.5 earthquake, hugely powerful versus even an 8.8. But it got us worried because it was in the same area.
All right. It looks like we're going to go back to Dr. Lyons, and we're going to find out the next hour what people can expect.
At least the larger wave energy may have passed the islands now. That's not a guarantee, but we should see them start to blow the all clear sign here within the next maybe hour or so. By that time, most of the tsunami wave energy should be well past the Hawaiian Islands.
And Steve, is it possible, maybe some of the other islands over towards Guam, and if they, I'm sure, is it possible they have had higher, higher wave than this?
Well, what happens with the wave energy is it spreads out just like a pebble in the pond. You start out with this tiny little pebble, and then at the end of the pond you have this gigantic ring of a wave. Well, that little energy that was around the pebble has now spread out over a huge area. And that's what happens with the tsunami as it moves away from the South American coast. The energy spreads out. And that spreading makes it go down in elevation. And so the farther away you go, typically, the lower you get. And that's why in the Gulf of Alaska and the Alaskan coastline, they're not expecting much more than a couple of feet, even though they had 3 or 4 feet in some localized areas in Southern California. That's a spreading effect. So the Western Pacific, yeah, they can feel some water rises and falls. They should be monitoring carefully. There can be some nooks and crannies there that could accentuate the problem. So the wave has not traveled all the way across the Pacific yet. But it's going to be diminishing in height as it goes west and northwest, and that's good news.
That is absolutely good news, because already, just from some tweets, Dr. Lyons, some impacts already off the coast of Japan. Does that sound about right to you? Could it be getting there already?
I'd have to check the arrival times, but I think that might be a little bit early yet for Japan. It's still a long way to the west from Hawaii, so I think it's still got a few hours to go before that. Now, some of the very low-lying atolls in the tropical Pacific, those are always very vulnerable. But fortunately, a lot of the tsunami energy was not directed more toward the west, and that is good news. So we don't expect any overwashing, complete overwashing of any of the atolls, at least right now.
And Steve, in Hilo Bay, they did see some of the water receding ahead of this tsunami. And I asked this question earlier. I wonder if maybe you could answer this. Is there any correlation between how much water is pulled out and maybe the height of the tsunami, or maybe the damage it can do?
I don't know if we have enough information to answer that with any accuracy. Obviously, if it was just rapidly evacuated and you had a 20-foot deficit of water, surely that's going to come back onshore, even if it goes back to normal tide levels, as a huge onshore push of water. So in some indirect way, it probably is related, but I don't know that we have any firm studies that indicate that, if you can calculate how big the onshore rush of water will be based on the onshore rush of water away from the coastline. And sometimes it doesn't happen much. Sometimes it's just the onshore wave that comes in some areas.
And Dr. Lyons, based on the information that we have gathered through California, 1 to 3 foot water level rise, and in Hawaii, we may have seen water level rises above 5 feet, correct me if I'm wrong, but with some of that information, can you interpolate and kind of figure out what's going to happen maybe next for Indonesia, Japan, maybe some other spots?
Well, typically we would expect it to be significantly lower than that. The tsunami will continue to propagate until it hits land and dissipates, or wraps around islands and dissipates. It will continue to move. So it will affect most of the Pacific Basin, but it will be much lower in height by the time it gets toward the Japan area, at least in the open ocean. And of course, we always have those nooks and crannies that can really focus the tsunami wave energy. I don't know where those are right off the top of my head in Japan. I know Hawaii pretty well, but not Japan.